Teachers of Reddit, what clicked about a pupil after meeting their parents? One female organ student I had always wore dresses that were very revealing, both above the knee and in cleavage. When she'd sit on the organ bench for a lesson, it was almost embarrassing. I wondered why she'd insist on dressing this way until I met her parents. Her mother dressed identically, to the point where other parents would study her movements as she walked across the room at a reception after student recitals. It was a classic case of like mother, like daughter, and her father seemed to revel in it. I had this 8th grade girl, straight A's, lead role in the school musical, top student on the track team, super warm and friendly personality. She came into conferences with her parents. She was frozen and quiet. Her parents never smiled. They pulled out quizzes where she got A-minuses. They asked her where she was struggling, what wasn't she understanding, what can she do to get more help from the teacher. She's 14 years old and I just feel like that kind of pressure is going to break her one day. This is kind of different, but I thought it was sort of interesting. 2 weeks after I started high school, all the parents and students were invited to an informative tour around the school, or something like that. I do not remember, but this was at 6 PM so it was not mandatory for students to attend. I was basically the only student. We were welcomed to sit down randomly in our classroom. The interesting thing is that almost every parent took their own child's seat without knowing it, or a seat very close to it. It was so strange and I could see the similarities. Even the questions they asked. After a mom asked about the library, all I could think was that's such a freaking Sarah question to ask. Guess what, it was Sarah's mom. I wasn't a teacher, but a student, and I was close to one of the caseworkers in high school. She dealt with more troubled teens, and ones that grew up with horrible parents, legal guardians and so on. However, there was this one girl, who always wore the same clothes, absolutely stunk, like no showers or brushing of teeth. She didn't brush her hair, and was quite boisterous amongst other red flags. The CW sat down with her one day and opened the purse the girl brought, looking for a pen. Girl gave consent, and out came at least 5 cockroaches. Needless to say, my CW was taken aback as she didn't expect these vile things to come out when looking for a pen. I'm pretty sure she called social services CPS after that and they found out that her family were hoarders and neglected their well-being and their children. This girl in prep already showed traits of a narcissist sociopath. She was extremely clever but lacked empathy, manipulative, blatantly lied, stole and so on. Yes, this might just sound like characteristics of any child, but there was definitely something different about her. Anyway, met her mum who refused to accept that her child would do anything wrong. And when the child admitted she stole a girl's bracelet because she wanted it, her mum said that's okay, we can go buy you one on the way home. Had the exact same experience. I've taught students that were jerks, but you could see a reason or get to the bottom of it. But the student that still scares me to this day is the one that was physically and emotionally hurting people because she wanted to see people hurt. That always got me. Parents never really blamed her for anything. I teach grade 7 in the US 12-13 years olds. 13 years old student constantly in low grade trouble. The 3 Ds. Disobedience, disrespect and disruption. I shrugged it off, figuring something was up at home. Meet mom at PTC. She's obviously young. We start conference and she offers, I'm sorry, student name is such a handful. I just don't have time to discipline him like he needs. I'm 27 and I have 5 kids. All 4 teachers in the conference can be seen subtracting 13 from 27. I'm the kid. When I was growing up, I'd get pulled aside and asked if I smoked. I'm talking elementary school. My parents smoked in the house with the windows closed. I was heavy, really heavy, with a lot of confidence issues that still stick around today. I had problems with anger growing up, not so much now, but I was an excellent student when you could inspire me to focus or found something I was passionate about. They'd meet my parents, and nod to me. My dad, who would work swing and overtime every day almost to support my mom's 2-3 pack a day habit at the time. Now it's only 1 pack, supposedly. My mom, who basically looked strung out on drugs, but was really just taking so many antipsychotics and pain meds that she might as well have been. My parents tried to be supportive of me, but I'm not sure they really knew how. I'd keep a bottle of Febreze on me starting in middle school because the questioning from teachers got worse. I'm graduating college in June even though it's taken me twice as long as it should have, mostly because of money, a lack of guidance, and my own mental BS. I got a job working in student government for the first time ever and was sent to a conference in Washington DC by my college last year. I worked my first non-minimum wage job this summer and got invited to come back with another raise. To my 4th and 5th grade teacher, if you're reading this, I'm okay, I did it, and I hope your ladybug collection has grown. My 5th grade teacher said she understood why at times I couldn't finish my homework or fall asleep in class after seeing my mother had cancer. I'm sure before that she thought I was lazy. She became super close with my mom after, and the day my mom passed away, still in 5th grade, she cried in class when they messaged her, and that's how I knew it was over. I personally believe teachers make a huge impact in a child's life, and she really helped me out and understood. Kid named Rowdy, super nice kindergartner, wondered why the heck his name was Rowdy. Met his mom, dad was Mia, lived with grandma, in a hoarder house, and they smoked inside with the window closed. He graduated last spring. Saw him walking in the rain at 9 AM, not sure where he was headed, but all I could think was he was headed in the wrong direction. Not a teacher, but my high school German teacher pulled me aside the day after parent-teacher conferences and told me, "I understand why you try so dang hard all the time." I was getting a 98% in class and my teacher told my mom I forgot to turn in a few homework assignments. So my mom proceeded to yell at me in front of hundreds of students and say that I was a lazy piece of crap. She should have had an abortion. That I look too much like my dad and it's his fault I'm a lazy freaking retard, over a handful of homework assignments. After that, my German teacher told me if I needed to stay in the room during lunch to knock out homework she'd feed me. She said, "A lot of kids in your position would just give up and prove your mom right. I'm proud of you that you didn't. Bring your dad for the next conference." And I did, and my dad was absolutely ecstatic that I was getting a 98% because he is a decent freaking parent. My dad isn't a lazy freaking retard either. He's got a biology degree, and because of that teacher, when I'm out of the army I'm going to teach high school German. I'm not teacher, but I work in a shelter for abused women and children. I've heard way too many horror stories, but the thing that horrified me the most is when I see the moms who treat their kids like they are lower than crap, calling them down, telling them to shut up rather than calming them when they cry, ignoring them. Had a mom whose son had his arm broken trying to save her from her abusive partner. Treated him like he was scum of the earth. Didn't properly care for his arm. The child was so broken he not only could not look me in the eye or smile, he could literally not lift his head when he stood. It was most often propped against a wall. These kids, I wonder every day what sorts of adults they will become. Really liked what a previous post said, pressure can burst pipes or make diamonds. Not yet a teacher, but studying to be one. In one of my major field experiences, there was a kid who was insanely competitive. He would take everything as a challenge and would accuse others of cheating if he lost. He even challenged me, a 19-year-old student at the time, to a race. I told him it really wouldn't be fair since I was fully grown, and he started berating me that I was scared to race him. Mind you, he was 9 at the time. So the end of the year is coming around and we had a field day where parents volunteered to do games for the kids, and it was supposed to be a fun day full of popsicles and school games. His parents had a relay race, spin around the bat, jump rope a certain distance, etc. And when it was his turn they encouraged him to cheat by not following their rules and got upset because some poor girl dropped the bat, obviously meaning she would be disqualified. They also brought a tug-of-war up and it was the girls of the class versus the boys, the girls being outnumbered. My field experience teacher put me on their team. I decided I wouldn't tug so that it was a bit more fair, but once again the students' parents started getting red-faced telling him to win. I looked at my field experience teacher and she just nodded and I pulled. Kid got knocked down a peg. I'm imagining Leonidas looking back at the queen for that nod. This is field day. I was a teacher's aide in an after-school care program in an elementary school. It's where the kids come after the school day ends so they can be cared for until their parents get off work. There was one boy who was a total bully attention hound. He was stocky and tall and strong for his age, 9 at the time, and a lot of the other kids were scared of him because he demanded that they play with him and then threatened to break things if they didn't do what he wanted. He was totally disrespectful of any adult authority, just a general terror. I disliked him. He was dropped off in the morning by one babysitter and picked up by another at the latest possible time. I never saw a parent. His mother was a news reporter for the Denver Post, like a lady about town who covered the society pages and did reviews of things. Friday afternoon this kid was being super good. He spent all afternoon drawing things for his mom and saying my mom is coming to get me tonight, not my babysitters. She has the whole weekend off and we're going to do things together, just her and me. Here's the list of all the things. Things like watch a movie, go for a walk, eat dinner together, etc. Pick up time arrived and here comes the mom, yapping away on her cell phone. Back when having a cell phones was very unusual, signing her kid out without speaking to anyone. Her son is standing there holding his pictures to show her, so excited. She shushed him and brushed off his hand, and her conversation was, oh yeah, I can go review that new spa in Aspen. I'm not doing anything this weekend. Let me just drop. Kid's name, at the babysitter for the weekend, blah blah. The kid visibly crumpled in on himself. He was silently crying as his mom yanked him out the door while she yapped on her phone, not even as much as a hi honey to her son. I did my best to be very understanding, caring, and attentive to the kid after that, asking him how his day went, praising him when he behaved well. I wish I knew what became of him. I left to go to college, but I know whenever I saw his mom's byline in the paper I wanted to kick her in the head. She died recently and I was like, good. I may be a horrible person but that kid was simply a chihuahua in a handbag to her. Her obituary said she was especially devoted to her son, and I wanted to puke. All I could see was that little boy, with his drawings in his hands, brushed aside by his mother, collapsing in on himself. I hope he's okay now. Male students who were really tough on female teachers, met their parents, saw how the kid's dad treated the kid's mom, and everything made sense. Tough to overcome attitudes that are reinforced 8 hours a day every day. I was an elementary teacher's aide for several years in college. We were having a parent-teacher conference with a struggling 5th grader and his parents. The poor kid was bright, but somewhat lazy and reading at barely a 1st grade level. The teacher laid out what we've been working on with the student individually for the last few months to try to improve his reading and get him engaged in learning. The teacher then gently suggested that the kid should be practicing his reading at home with an adult. I suggested that since the kid loved Pokemon, there were some juvenile novelizations of Pokemon stories at the local bookstore that he may enjoy, and that it would help interest and engage him in improving his reading comprehension. I'll never forget the withering look the father gave me. We don't have extra money lying around to buy something that he can do at school. I was 19 at the time and shaky around confrontation, so I lowered my gaze and shut my mouth. The teacher reassured the parents that we were doing everything in our power to help their child, and that we would continue helping their son improve his reading. That was that. A few days after this, the students were taking turns at the end of the day telling us something good that happened to them that week, a ritual that I really admire that the teacher started. The kids loved it. When it was the struggling student's turn, he stood up and got an empty video game case and controller out of his bag and said, "This week, my dad bought the new PlayStation and lots of new games, and we've been staying up late every night playing." I almost cried in frustration and pity. Please understand, I have absolutely nothing against kids playing video games, but it has to be in moderation. His freaking parents sat there and told us that they had no extra money to help their kid not only get better at learning, but actually enjoy doing it with something he loved, like a goddamn $4.99 book about Pokemon. But then they turn around and spend hundreds of dollars on a new PlayStation and games. Maybe buy your kid a book about video games. Butthole. So frustrating. He bought the PlayStation for himself. It doesn't matter if books were 10 for $1, they're not for him and he's not interested in them, so it's not important. I had a very aggressive kid that started fights a lot. Met his father during a mid-semester parent-teacher conference and he told me he would beat his son more to make sure he behaved. The kid's behavior made a lot more sense then. Called a kid in for CPS because she had scratches over her eyes and was being very distant about them. The parents then called the school to yell and berate us for calling CPS because they were sending a team to check it out. Lost my job over it, but they got her and her brother out of that house. I have one little boy who is strange. He either sits in a corner muttering to himself, or he's trying to hug the life out of other kids. His twin sister is also in our class and he needs to be reminded often that he is inappropriately touching her. He is 5, but he can't do anything. He freaks out about having to put his own shoes on, putting away his things, everything. On top of all of that, he will only eat PB&J sandwiches, so at school it's just J. And then I met his dad. Ooh my BB order kuwit SBB in the whole world. You don't have to do one single thing when dad is here. And then it clicked. I kept returning assignments to a 16-year-old for constant, blatant plagiarism. After doing this several times for the same assignment, bending the rules a bit but trying to get through to the student how to use sources without plagiarizing, he said you're wrong. My dad says this is how you write essays. It's how he passed his BTEC. Right. So I got his dad in for a meeting where I taught him how to not plagiarize, which led to this gem of a conversation. Me. You can see that this section of the essay is directly copied and pasted from Wikipedia. The dad, quite angry at this point. That's just not true. I've seen him work and he doesn't copy and paste. He reads it from one window then types it out himself. Me. After pausing in disbelief, then he is extremely inefficient in his plagiarism. As a 4th grade teacher I endured a lot of unruly students. Had one kid whose favorite show was Sons of Anarchy. Great show but not sure for a 9-year-old. He wasn't super aggressive but would get in other kids' faces or slap hit at them for various reasons. Met his mom. Also happened to work at the school. And she would often tell me how she would tell her son if anyone got in his face or hit them to drop that motherfucker. Let's just say he took that advice to heart and he made a lot more sense after meeting his mom. Great kid otherwise though. We had this girl who was really dense. Nice girl but there was very little happening behind the eyes. She was always stood with her mouth open and her tongue halfway out. Her dad picked her up and then came back 5 minutes later to ask if we had any bricks. We asked why. At the bottom end of our car park there is a big, visible ditch where the ground has sunken. Then there is a massive curb. Again, all of this is clearly visible so nobody goes near that end of the car park. But he thought this looked like a good way drive put of the car park and his car was now pivoting on the curb with his front wheels not touching the ground. We had to make a ramp out of bricks to get him free. It answered a lot of questions about the girl. Since then get the bricks ready has become a euphemism for just spoke to a stupid parent. Hey, he may be dumb but at least he can problem solve his way into his next mistake. When a parent refused to come in for a reintegration meeting because it clashed with their Weight Watchers meeting, that answered a lot. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.